Well, hello, Chris. How are you today?
I am fine. How are you doing, Jessica?
I am doing great. Coming in from the East Coast to the West Coast, it sounds like. Hopefully, it's
Yes, indeed.
nice out there today. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect. I'm super excited to kind of pick your brain about your experience with the whole CFP process. I know it's a little bit different for everybody on their journey, but ultimately, however we get there, and I'm excited to have you share with others. Because everybody's experience is totally different, and so I kind of want to pick your brain. Will you tell us a little bit about your experience, like your background? Are you a career changer? Have you been in the industry for years? Like, walk me through it here.
Sure. So I am a changer. I am 52. I took the exam the first time at 49, and I believe
Okay.
I passed it at 50, so 2 years ago. And
Okay.
and I had been in sales, and then got into the health insurance business in 2011.
Okay.
And so started with a company and got into individual health insurance and then Medicare and then life insurance and long-term care and disability and fixed annuities. And
Okay.
I'd been doing that for a while and then kind of branched off, um, continuing to do it, but doing it kind of in my own storefront. And came across an advisor from Mutual of Omaha who said, "Hey, it actually a client had introduced us, a
Okay.
mutual client." And so we started talking. He goes, "Hey, you know what? If you really like what you're doing, if you like helping people, which is what I told him is the most exciting part of it, he's like, you could really feel so much better if you could help them financially, not just with health insurance, and you can make more money doing it." And I said, "Okay, that sounds good." And so, yeah, right. So like a little bit of a leap of faith here, and went over in 2018, and then started in 2018, 2019, getting my Series 6. I first
Okay.
started studying, I grabbed the Series 65 book and I looked at it and it's like that thick. And I said, there's got to be an easier way to do this because it's been a long time since I've been studying. Um,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah, and I'm married. My wife works full time. I've got three kids, and at that time, one in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary school.
Okay. So you had
So
every responsibility under the sun.
yeah,
Uber
yeah,
driver, coach. Yeah.
yeah, chauffeur, yeah, exactly, everything. So, and so I decided, okay, well let's try this. And they said, well, you can do the six first. And so I did the six. I'm like, okay, that was hard. That was like the hardest test I've ever taken. And then I'm like, okay, so do the 66, I believe is what
Yeah.
it was. So I took the 66. And then I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, Chris, if you want to do managed money, you got to do the 65. And I'm like, okay, so do the 65. So I do the 65. I'm like, that was the hardest test. That took me a couple of tries. And so,
Yep.
oh, this is crazy. And then I got into business and I was kind of cruising along for about a year or so. And I said, I just feel like I need to know more, especially if I'm going to be doing any kind of financial planning. And so I partnered with a gentleman who I now, we both are, I'm the president, he's the CEO of a corporation. Um,
Yep.
so for financial planning. And so I said, I just need to know more. And I asked around, what do I need to do to know more? Because you've
Yeah.
got all these designations,
Right.
all these different areas that you can focus on, and they're really really good at focusing in one specific area. So, but that's
Yes.
not really going to do it for me. I really need to know. Like I'm coming in new. I need to know.
All of it.
Yeah, I need to know the big picture here. How one thing affects another, because they all affect one thing affects another. And so
Correct.
and so they said, oh, you got to do the CFP, and I'm like, hmm, okay, let's just do it. So the company paid for it. The broker dealer paid for it, and I said, okay, let's do this. And so I signed up and started doing it, and I did it through Kaplan,
Yep.
where I done my FINRA licenses. And so got started with that, and I was like, I don't know, is this a mistake? Because it was daunting. I hadn't taken my seven. The seven would have really, I think, helped me.
Giving you a
Um,
little bit more. Yeah.
a little bit more because I really just didn't know this stuff. So I got through the behavioral part. I thought that was pretty easy. And then you march all the way through and you just had to kind of commit. And I told my wife, hey, this is what I'm doing. She's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it. We'll support you. We'll try to not to bother you. But you still got a family, you still got a life. And so I was doing this, and they're like, "Oh, listen to different podcasts," and they're talking about, sorry, when you're studying for this, you're gonna have to miss birthdays, you're gonna have to miss holidays, you're gonna have to miss all this and this and that. And I told my wife, I'm like, I think this is what's gonna happen. And my wife's like,
I think my
no,
life is over.
yeah. And my wife's a physician, so she's been through all way more than I have, and so she's like, no, you don't have to put life on pause for a year and a half. You just have to focus and study and be consistent. So did the Kaplan program, got through the capstone, and I decided, okay, now it's time to do a review program. And I signed up for the Boston Institute of Finance, BIF.
Yep.
And so signed up for
Yep.
that. They're like, oh yeah, like 100% of our people pass. I'm like, wow, that's great. I'll sign up for this. And so I got into it, and it was the lady selling the product. And so I got into it, and I went through the whole program and studied. I was in 2 different study groups, and I was studying all the time, thinking that's what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then went
Yep.
and felt really confident. Oh, not, and I don't think anyone's really confident about taking the test, but I took the test in November of 2020, I believe. And
Okay.
then I could be off by the year. I think I tried to block it out. But I took it, and then I failed.
Okay.
It was horribly crushing.
Mhm.
And I know I'm skipping ahead here. You actually just asked what was my background, but it all just
No,
flew.
no, this is important because people need to understand the whole story, and there's so many more pieces, and it's a moving, like the puzzle is more complicated.
Yeah,
Especially you got the kids, you got the marriage, you got and it's not like you're solo and you can study every waking second and not feel, there's no guilt that you're not going out with friends at night. It's more, oh crap, my kids have like it's a different game, not game,
yeah,
different situation.
yeah. And I was kind of envious and a little jealous of the people that weren't married, didn't have kids or anything like that.
Yes,
And I was jealous and envious of it, but I was like, but that's not the reason that I'm not going to pass. Right.
correct.
And then
Yep.
I was in a study group from people that I met in the Kaplan program, and then we would meet on Saturdays, and then on Sundays I'd meet with the group that were in the BIF program with me. So
Okay.
the people in Kaplan, they were in the Kaplan review, they were in Danko's review, they were in Dalton's review, they were in all these different review programs. And I'm like, well, let's get a good, round
Nice.
understanding of how they're teaching this, and maybe we can help each other. And so that was the whole
Yep.
point. Really, really good people. And then the BIF program,
Yep.
we were just going over everything that we were taught there. I really liked the approach of the BIF program because it was just like it covered everything, but it was a guess as to what they thought was going to be on the test. And it
Yep.
was 100% commitment on their part of this is what's going to be on the test, and this is how it's going to go.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, you don't know because they're always rewriting this exam. And there's, from what I understood, 2 or 3 different versions that you could be taking at the same
Yeah.
time. And so I'm like, I don't know how you're doing this, but you got to go with faith that this is what's
Yeah.
going to help you. So when you get done and you see the fail, the the what you go through mentally is just crushing.
Mm-hmm.
Up to the point, I remember just driving home and I'm like, maybe I just reached my limit. People
Mm-hmm.
will say, well, this is the limit for me. I've reached a limit. We all have limits, I suppose. And that's what I started to just try to be the salve for that pain was, hey, you know what? At least I tried and reached my
I
limit.
tried. I tried.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm done. And then I let that kind of marinate for a little bit and then kind of pass. And then I
Yeah.
realized there was a lot of people, my family especially, that supported me. And I was thinking, if I don't try again, I'm not so much letting myself down as I'm letting everyone that supported me down.
You're
And
giving
so
me literally goosebumps all over my arms right now because I feel like we have a very similar, I'll explain after, but like I literally have goosebumps all over from hearing you say this.
yeah,
Okay. Sorry.
there's a combination of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And if you're going into this, you probably have some intrinsic motivation. But then if you have people around you supporting you, there's the extrinsic side. And then there's almost a commitment to them
Yeah.
that they are owed this. And so I decided I'm gonna go back and do this. And I signed up for the BIF program because if you fail the first time, they let you
Yep.
sign up again. So I
Yep.
signed up again, and it's no cost. I'm like, okay. And then I had posted on the CFP forum my
Yep.
experience, kind of just wrote it all out, how I was feeling, and just feeling
Yep.
crushed and destroyed. And an individual, one of Paul's former students, reached out and says, "Holy cow, I had the exact same feeling, the exact same experience." And because I put in there, what were my weaknesses? Where did I feel that I was weak? And I was weak in the 2 worst areas you could be weak in this test: problem solving and reading comprehension. They've never been.
I okay. We're okay. Keep going. Keep going. I'm 100% on with you on this.
So I've never been strong in those areas. I wish I was. They're kind of
Same.
important, right? But
Yep.
that's the key with taking this test is
Yep.
understanding first what is the question really asking. If you don't have
And
strong,
like pulling out all the other pieces that are not as important. And sorry to interrupt, I just don't want to lose my thought on this.
go
It
for it.
is not a tax question, an insurance question, estate planning. It is, you go 5 layers deep. And that, I mean, that is probably one of the best things with Paul is like, I went so deep that you don't even necessarily know what type question is because it's covering, it's like a domino effect. Estate impacts tax and impacts this. And so it's like a true understanding, which is also, you said, getting the full understanding of the financial planning process and not just, the Series 6, the Series 7, Series 65, which is very narrow focused. It's more of a big picture global view.
Exactly. It's not a game of memorization.
No.
It is truly the essence of taking what you've learned and applying it, and then applying it in a way that they want it applied,
Dang it.
right?
Exactly.
So if
Yes.
you don't know what they're really asking, if you don't know the direction that that question is coming from, what's it truly asking? You aren't going to be able to answer this question correctly. And you've got what, 8 different areas that you can focus on. And when I took the test the first time, I was green in 3 and red in 5.
Okay.
And so after I talked to this individual who said, you should probably talk to Paul, because I was kind of thinking maybe a tutor. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to pay out of pocket for this. Is it going to be worth it? I put my faith in this other program and I didn't pass. Whether it was me,
Yep.
whether it was the program,
Yep.
maybe it was a little bit of both, I don't know. But I certainly overstudied and was completely burnt by the time I got to that test. So that's probably my study habits. But no one was, you think you know how to study, you made it through college.
It's not even I mean, the fact that you talked about the reading comprehension, I have always had personally test taking anxiety. I was the one who in school would work, I feel like 10 times harder just to get, the A's, but I worked my tail off. I'd go to extra help for everything because I knew if I could do more work, then it would help me if I didn't do good on the exam. And so there was like the mental stuff there. There was the reading comprehension. I mean, I would sit there with Paul and I would read, and he would say, well, what does that say? And if it was supposed to say does not, I would read it as does. If it was does, sometimes if I wanted to read it as does not, I was reading it based on that. So it was wild, the test taking uh shakeup that I had to do because all the programs I think are good. I don't think one program is better than another. I think everybody learns differently. And I think some people may naturally be good test takers and it works out great, or they're good test takers, but this exam is different than that. So it's for me too, the questions, and you may get to this at some point as we're talking, but the fact that Paul said at the end, you're going to do 100 questions a day for the last month, I'm thinking, no chance in the world. Like, one, I don't have that many questions. Two, I'm a slow reader. At the rate I'm going now, that will be an all day, full time job. Like, just totally
Yeah.
not possible. And it was literally the best thing I possibly could have done because I took it 3 times. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. The first two, same thing. It's like nonstop. You think you're doing it 24/7, but you're thinking about it 24/7. And the second time, I did get a tutor, but it was more about the material and not the test taking skills. And so finally, for the third attempt, it was like, this is it. Like, I am doing everything in my power to pass at this point. And you had mentioned, I don't know if this was before or during this recording, that you have 3 kids. I have 3 boys. And I took my first exam November of let's see, hold on, I have to backtrack for a second. I took it in November, failed, and then took it again that March. And it is mentally, I was not in a good place. I thought I was ready. I took that full month off, and then I was like, let's just get it done. And then I took a year off because I was like, it was a lot. At the time, my kids were 7, 5, and 3. The second attempt, we moved like a month before the exam. Like, it was just chaos. And you said your wife's a physician. My husband, travels a lot for work, like very similar, like constant, you're just trying to balance it all. And my kids, my oldest, I remember cried when I came home and told him that I failed, like sobbed. Mommy, you work so hard. I don't want to watch you. Like, I don't want you to have to study anymore. And that was crushing. And it's like you see the sacrifices your family has made. You see, they want to encourage you, but you also need to be present. Like, you can't just peace out for, I mean, at that point, I'd been going through it for a while. And then I took the time off, met with Paul. I started in March of 2024 with Paul with the intention of taking it in November. Wait, I can't do math. March. I was giving myself 9 months, whatever. And then I got a concussion in July and was out for 5 weeks. Could not study,
Oh,
could not look at screens. And I'm like, God, please,
oh,
like, help me, please help me. And we studied, and then a month out, we made the call, like, okay, you're going to push it, which I was pissed. I was so mad. But everything happens for a reason. We still had a state and tax left. And I'm like, there's no way in a month we're getting through that.
Yeah.
And because I wanted to do it the right way and I didn't want to do it again. It was like, this is it.
Yeah.
And then I took it in March, but it was a different understanding. Like you just go deep and you know that. Did you ever take time off the first? Because you said you were doing Saturdays and Sundays. I never took time off. And so I was beat. And, I made a commitment. I would take one day off a week, one weekend day, which was very hard for me. I don't want to say I cheated, but I would do my tutoring session Sunday morning. I'm like, but that didn't count as a study day because it was just tutoring. And 3 months out, I was feeling like, no, I have to take the time because it gave me the recharge. I did not feel guilty spending time with my children or my husband. It was like Saturday from 2 until Monday morning, I shut off. But it always felt scary to do that. Like I wasn't doing everything I possibly could. Did you find that at all? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. When I was in the BIF program, and even through Kaplan, I didn't just study Saturdays and Sundays. That's just when I had my
no, that's what I'm
review.
saying. So like
But I
you
was
never took
doing
a day off.
no, I was no, you never took a day off. And I was doing, 2 hour days minimum because you had to. And the review program was good because it really does piece together everything. It really brings to light the information. That's where I did most of my learning was in the review programs.
Yep.
Going through the general education, it's almost like a rite of passage. You really cover so much information because, as they say, the CFP exam is a mile wide and an inch deep. So you're covering so much. Whereas if you went to like an RICP, that's a mile deep and an inch wide, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
so so that's why the CFP, that's where it's different because you really
Yep.
have to learn everything about this industry. And so, yeah, I was doing 2 hours a day every day. And for me, I'm a morning person. So knowing that
Me
is,
too.
yep. So I'd get up 5 in the morning and I'd study till 7, then get up, get ready for work, get the kids off to school, go to work, do your job, come home, and probably sit in a review meeting or something, maybe for another hour, right?
Yep.
But really that time in the evening was not productive for me. So it was really more wearing me down than it was building me.
Hmm.
And to go back, you mentioned, the kids where your son was crying. So I used that as motivation for me to pass this test, to show my kids when you think you've reached your limits, you self-impose those limits. And how do I show my kids how to overcome something very, very difficult and something you feel is out of your reach? How can you succeed past your limits? In other words, what's your excuse? And the thing is, there is no excuse. So
Correct.
the best way to teach my kids this is to show them. That's the only way to do it. To tell them, they'll just not listen to you because you're the parent, but you show them.
Correct.
And so for me, that was that big
Yep.
piece that motivated me to go through it again. Because again, after the first time, I was like, man, this is just crazy. But getting back on the horse and then again being introduced to Paul, I might have talked to one other person, but once I got talking to Paul, there was just a connection. He understood me. I told him my challenges. I was very upfront and said, this is the problem
Yep.
I have. And he goes, okay, when do you want to take the test? Now this is in December, right? Because I failed in November. Here's
Yep.
December. I said, I want to take it in March. Who doesn't want to get it over with? And he goes, okay. So you had 3 green, 5 red.
And 5 out of the 8 red. Well, what's your plan there, Chris?
Yep. And so he goes, okay. He goes, so do you want to take it in March or do you want to pass it in July? And I said, well, I want to pass it. He goes, then I think we need to aim for July. And that piece of information, that insight was key. That's one of the reasons I passed, because I would have failed in March because I was burnt.
Right.
So we
Well,
got
that was me.
started.
Exactly. And it's like you can't, if your engine's on 0 and there's no gas, like you're burning fumes.
Yeah. And he put it simply. He's like, listen, your muscles, your brain is a muscle. When you go to work out, do you not have recovery days? I said, yeah, of course I do. He goes, well, why do you think your brain doesn't need a recovery day? And so he goes, okay, so we're going to start. I agreed to work with him.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so we started working, I think it was late December, early January. And he set me up on a plan. We were doing 1 hour a week.
Yep.
How it started. And it would be in the morning, him being in
Yep.
Michigan, me being in California, worked out great. So we jump on Zoom call and we do 1 hour. And then I'd go and study. Now he would give me questions. I had questions and we pick areas to focus on where I was red. So we focused on the red areas first and
Okay.
got got moving along. And then as time went on, we picked up a little bit more. So,
Yep.
January, February, and then about March, I think we started doing twice a week, like an hour. And
Yep.
then we started doing 2 hour sessions in like April. And then May, really, I think we were doing 1 to 2 2 hour sessions a week.
Yep.
When he said, you're gonna, I'm gonna help you with this, but you got to put some faith in me. You need to
Yep.
take a day, 1 day a week off. And I said, I
You
don't
don't know,
think,
you don't know that part. You may know everything else, but you clearly don't know that part.
yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, for a year now, I've been going 100% every single day. Why? If I failed doing that, why would I take a day off a week? I mean, that's just counterintuitive.
The
And
opposite of what.
yeah, yeah. And so I said, I don't think I can do that. He goes, this is what you need to do. I said, well, when I'm on the bike or I'm running or doing whatever, I'll have my headphones in listening to it. He says, no, you need to do nothing, like nothing with this at all. I'm talking, and it can't be a work week. It can't be a
Uh-huh.
work.
I
Can't
know.
be
I
a
was like,
work
well,
day.
what if I do Mondays? And he's like, no, it has to be a weekend. I'm like,
It has to be a weekend. So I would pick a day. And the funny thing is that we would meet Monday. We started meeting Mondays and Fridays.
okay.
I think is when it was. I got it. I can't remember. But I know it was Fridays for sure. And
Yep.
and I remember when I didn't take the days off, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. By Wednesday, I was tired. Thursday
Sure.
was almost just like going through the motions, and by Friday, I was mush. But when I took the Saturday off, as I believe is what I did, I was strong all the way through the week. I was remembering, I was on it. When I came to the questions, I felt more confident about
He could
it.
see you show up on Mondays and be like, you didn't take the day off, or you took the day off. Like you
Yeah,
probably, because it's just, the energy is different. The mindset's different.
it is. So it's not just can he teach you the material, it's can he teach you how to study better. And you think, I'm 50 years old. I've been, I've studied, I made it through college. You think you know how to study until you get into something this difficult and complex. And then it really pushes you to learn new things. But the first thing is having faith in
Process. Yeah.
the process. It's the process. And the tutor is setting up that process. And so kind of kept marching through. And there were times, quite frankly, I get on the phone, I get on there and Paul, like he would mess with me, but in a good way. Like
Oh,
he would
he
be,
heard more swears out of my mouth. I feel
oh
really
yeah,
bad.
oh yeah. There was a couple of meetings where I'm like, Paul, I can't do this. I'm like, I gotta
I have
go.
to go.
I can't do this anymore. And he's like, all right, I'll see you next time. Click, and the meeting's over, right? Because I was not there, and it's gonna
No.
happen. It's a roller coaster. It's an emotional roller coaster. It's just the way it is, and you have to just be like, okay, all right,
And you're not the only one, which I think I'm so glad to hear you say this because I thought I was the only one that would swear at him. And
yeah.
did you ever have what was not the penalty, but the misread? He ever do misreads with you?
What do you mean?
Ho, okay. This might be a new thing because you did it a few years ago. So my reading comprehension, like I would literally misread.
Oh yeah,
I would read it the way, and so finally it was like, well, why don't you pay me every time you have a misread? And I said, I don't know how I feel about that. And he goes, let's do $5 for every misread. I was pissed. And I would send him, and I did like it was on me if I wanted to do it. And there would be days where I'm like, don't worry, I'm keeping track of it. And then at the next meeting, be like, your 5 misreads. And I was like, mother. But by the end, my misread was I barely ever misread a question. At first, it made me so mad, but it was the only thing that made me like try to read from way up above of like what are they asking me versus reading it the way I thought they were asking me or that I would want them to ask me.
yeah, yeah. Paul's approach was less about the material and more about how to take the test and how to think
Yes.
the test and how to approach it. So that's the key. And so
Yeah.
he didn't do that misread with me, but what he did was it was sneaky but it worked for me. I'd read through the question, and his level of patience are ridiculous, by the way.
He is
But
the calmest person I've ever met. Like
yeah,
it like brought my calm level like down. Or
yeah,
no, it kind of evened me out because
yeah, yeah. So, but
I
what he
said to
would
him after
do,
the exam, like I'd be taking the exam and I'd see you on the top of the computer kind of asking me like, well, why is that one wrong? What are they asking in this one? And I try not to speak out loud because then I'd look like I was talking to somebody, but like I was having a conversation with him throughout the entire
yeah,
exam.
yeah. But his thing that really worked for me is almost like a switch clicked. Um, is that he said, I read through it and I say, okay, the answer is B. He goes,
Are you sure?
is it why is it not C? And I said, oops, hold on here. Oh, I lost it. There's a phone call that came in. So he says, why is it not C? And I go, oh, you're right, it's C.
Yes.
And then come to find out, I was right the whole
You were right.
time. He wanted me to defend my position and then made me explain why B was the correct answer, but
And
which
why the other ones were wrong.
why the other ones were wrong exactly. And so that's the process that he got me into that we followed to get me to the test taking strategy of reading the question the first time and then looking at the answers, reading it a second time.
Yeah.
Okay. Because now you've read the question, you know what the answer choices are. Read the question again, eliminate two. Now I got a 50-50 chance on this one.
Yep.
And so now I'm like, okay, I've read the question twice. I've read it
Yeah.
slowly. I've read it word by word. And
With my
now,
finger.
yep, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I'm in like second grade.
It
So
works though. I mean,
it works. It works. Yeah. And so that was the key to me learning how to take this test. And there was other things that he helped me with, you know, how to do it in the process that we would follow. And then yeah, towards the end we get into like May and you know June. He's like, all right, you got to be doing 100 questions a day. And I'm like, dude, you're crazy. There's no way I'm doing 100 questions a day. And then I was doing 100 questions a day. And
yeah.
I would budget the time. I would do those 100 questions. I wasn't doing study groups because he's like, hey, you're sitting in
No,
a
you
study
don't.
group with other people that don't know the answer either.
Right. And I think that with the study group, it's very easy to not stay in your own lane. And you feed off positive energy, negative energy, and everybody has different things they need to work on. So it's like a confused mind does nothing.
Yeah.
The thing that I love that you said, you studied in the morning, and I think that was a huge piece for me. I am dead by the end of the night.
Oh, yeah.
And especially if you're going home to a spouse and kids, it's like the first part of the day is from the time you get up until the kids get to school. The second part of the day, or the second day in the day, is your job. And then the third part of the day, or the third day, is studying, like getting the children to bed. And so it's like I always looked at it as three different sections. And it, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I'd study 5 to 6 or 7. I
Yeah.
would go to hot power yoga. I'd get the kids on the bus. I'd go to work. And it's like there was no worry throughout the day because I knew I had already put in the
Yeah.
time. And so it was like okay, I got this. Or I would start working out at night. I used to do mornings because that didn't take much. Bacon, please go. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll be out with you. I am so sorry. Here you
Oh,
see. There's
like that never happened when you were deep in studying.
and so it was
I put a sign up on my door and the kids ignored it. So yeah.
obviously, yeah. So that was one piece. And then the other thing that was kind of eye-opening to me is like I always thought more was better. And when I said to Paul, how many hours do I need to study? He was like, it's not about the hours, it's about the quality, and pick, however, 4 or 5 things a day you're going to do. So it may take you an hour one day and another day it may take you 4. And it was very hard to wrap my head around that, just like the taking the day off. But it was so important. It was so important to me. And then the other thing I will share that I totally relate on is the piece with the kids, because we had been like, the original reason for taking the exam was very different from at the end. Yes, I still wanted to pass, to learn all the material, better serve my clients. But we had been talking a lot with our oldest about grit and pushing through and perseverance. And I'm thinking, how the heck am I able to say, you need to push through, you need to do this, if he watched me fail twice and I threw in the towel? And so
Yeah.
my husband, the first time I took the exam, had my older two record a little video for me that he gave me the morning of the exam. And it was crushing when I did not pass. And on this third attempt, I said, all I want is for them to make, I'm getting goosebumps again, for them, all three of them, to make me their individual videos. And I must have watched them each 3 times before I walked into the exam during the break. And the difference, because it had been a year and a half, 2 years. So my oldest was 9. It was 7 versus 9 and 7 and 5. Like that was the age difference. And the mommy, I'm so proud of you. You've worked so hard. Like that was the eureka moment. And it was, whether I pass or not, what I have shown them is huge. However, I had 5 questions left on the exam, or 10 questions left. I remember going to the bathroom to try, because your heart just starts when you're towards in that last section on your
Yeah.
second or third attempt. It is like, don't screw this up, don't screw this up. And I remember going to the bathroom and I said, God, please. I did some deep breathing and meditation. And I'm like, I have shown my kids perseverance and grit. All I am asking is that you please show them that it pays off. Because I don't want to keep going. And I need, like, I won't stop until I finish it. But like, if you could just help me a little bit, like, I've done everything in the world. And it was the best feeling in the world after that. Because
Yeah.
you can't just tell them. You have to show them, like you said, and they will remember that, you know, forever, forever. That's not something you can teach them through words. It is only through your actions. And so, you know, I know you said your wife's a physician and she's done lots of exams. She probably didn't have the kid. The kids probably weren't around to watch that happen. They got to watch, you know, dad change careers, you know, fall down on his face and struggle and see it's okay to struggle, but what do you do about it afterwards?
Yeah, one of my managers when I'm in the health insurance business gave me a good piece of advice. Like I was complaining about the law changes and how it was going to destroy our career, and I came in and I was just complaining to him about this and this and this and that, and he just let me go, kind of like what Paul would just let you go, and then would just ask a simple question, which is, so is that the reason that you're going to fail? And that's all he had to say, and I was just like, no, that's not the reason. Well, then get out of my office and go back to doing what you do best. And Paul isn't quite as brash as that, but both resonated with me. And Paul just super patient, but he understands the individual, he understands the student, he understands the testing process
Yes.
very well, and he's not trying to teach you the material. He's trying to teach you how to take the test, and it's more important to know how to take that test. And the material is always important, but there
Right.
are simply going to be questions that are going to be asked you don't know the answer to, but if you can narrow it
You can
down
get
to
it down to two.
you got a
Yep.
50-50 chance.
Yep.
And then the reasoning, the rationale that's going on in your head, what he's learned over and over and over through repetition, is what helps you succeed. Now, I told you I passed the second time. Okay, so I've taken the test twice, I failed twice, and I passed.
What? Wait.
So after I took the test in July, I walked out and I had failed. So I went home and I go, well, I wasn't as crushed um, as I was the first time. But I was like, how do I tell Paul I didn't pass? So I called Paul and I'm like, I didn't pass. And he was just like, you got to be kidding me. You've worked so hard and you knew your stuff. How did you not pass? I said, well, it's just the case. I said, I need to take some time. Well, about a week, 3 weeks, a month later, I get a call from the chairman of the CFP board. He calls me and he says, hey, Chris, I want to talk to you about your test. I said, yeah, I failed. And he's like, well, that's just it. You know how we have to go and there's questions that are thrown out, right? And he goes, when you go through that, and there's questions that aren't great, that aren't really
Right.
right, but they
Yep.
go through like kind of a process.
Test taking scenario, like
Yeah.
a,
So
yeah.
if you had like 90% of the people get a test question wrong, it's probably not the student, it's the question, the way it's worded. So they'll throw that question out. Well, apparently, I answered enough wrong questions on those questions that he said, Chris, I'm just letting you know that you actually passed and you're getting your certificate. And
Oh my God.
I said, what? And then I told him, I said, I'm glad you're not here because I'd kiss you. And he just laughed. And so, and then I get to call Paul. Now, tell him this was the best phone call. Hey, Paul, I passed. He's like, what? I go, yeah, I died and I came back to life.
Resurrected.
I mean, I don't know how I couldn't tell you. So I've taken the test twice, passed twice, or failed twice and passed
Failed
once.
twice, but ended up.
Yeah, and I heard
That
it
is
happening, but
right.
I never ever expected that to be me because you really got to be on the edge on that one.
Well, that's a mic drop. That is unbelievable. Like, and
Yeah,
it paid off. Like, you did everything you possibly could have done, and
yeah,
it's trusting the process. It really is.
it,
And
it is. Yeah, I've talked to several people that Paul would say, "Hey, this person, wants some references before working with me." And
yep,
I've talked to them. I go, "Listen, this is the conversation what happened. This is what happened. This is but I can only have
yep,
this conversation one on one. This at least other people, multiple people can
yep.
see it at the same time." Um, and so that's the key is do you mesh with the person? Do you mesh with the tutor? Do you feel, if you're being honest and you say these are my weaknesses, does the tutor
Yep.
understand what you're saying and can give you some confidence that they can help you? But if you do not trust in the process, it's not going to work. And
Correct.
I'll talk to Paul and I'm like, how's your class doing, this last class or whatever? Because I'll keep in touch with them. And
Yep.
he's like, Chris, he goes, they're a month out and they're doing 10 questions a day. And
Right.
I'm like, how do they ever expect to pass 10 questions a day? I mean, you've gone through this whole thing. If you're going to commit. That's not
Right.
commitment.
If you're going to make the investment, like match the investment with your time and the effort, because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And if you're going to go and do it, do it. Like, don't waste your time if you're not willing to put in the time to do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just trusting in the process and how bad do you want it. But you find someone that understands what your weaknesses are. Paul's going to tell you like it is.
Yeah.
He's not a
And you
salesman.
will get mad at him
Yeah.
sometimes because he gets
Yeah.
you outside your comfort zone, but that is a
Yeah.
good thing.
That's supposed to happen because you're gonna get like that in the test. But if you go through it enough times, by the time you get to the test, you see it and you can deal with it. You've been through that emotion and you're like, okay, no, I understand what's going on here. And you take the easy test first, and then you come back with the questions that you marked, and then you address it because some of the questions would already be answered. But that's part of what Paul will teach
Yeah.
you and taught me. So
Yeah.
I can't thank Paul enough. And that's why, I'll do this is because um, he can't really brag about himself the way that I can
No.
brag about him. And so it's, no matter what your situation is, you're married, you're single, you've got kids, you're going through whatever. And I was going through a very difficult time with my family, with my marriage, right? So you have that on top of everything. But again, what's your excuse?
How bad do you want it?
How
Like,
bad do you want it? Yeah, like is the reason you're going to fail? I mean, there's certain things that are really, really rough. In one of my study groups, there was five of us, and I joined late to one of the study groups on a Saturday, and come to find out, one of them was on a vacation and was out studying, and they just saw her fall over, and she ended up dying from an aneurysm.
woo,
Yeah, yeah, and it happened like I joined late, and they're like, yeah, we don't know what happened, and so that also was something that stuck with me and was like, okay, motivation to try to do it for her.
and
It
it's
was,
you get to do this, not I have to do this. Like it
yeah,
is a choice, and you get to. We have the opportunity to not only grow personally, but then to be able to help others. And it's not supposed to be torture. I know it feels like that throughout the process, but it's like we get to do this. We are blessed to be able to wake up every day and do it.
I think parents say that more than anyone else is that I get to get my kids ready to school. I get to do this because it's stuff you don't want to be doing. But when you turn that around from I have to I get to, it really
It's a different
changes the whole narrative. It changes the whole um, position you have on it. So
perspective on it.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you. I cannot tell you how much I've appreciated getting to hear your experience, and you relate to I relate to you on so many different levels, and I think there's no one perfect way to do this. Like everybody's different. Their study habits are their the way their mind works, the way they learn things, their situations at home, their careers. Like no one person is going to have the exact same situation as someone else, but it's you can get through this. It is going to be an emotional roller coaster, like you said. There are going to be things that happen in life, but it is so worth it on the other end. And the fact that you got two fails and then the phone call, like but you kept your head up, like you were blessed with the work that you put into it. And
Yeah.
so I thank you for sharing it because somebody needs to hear what you said today. And it is several people do, but my hope and wish and prayer is that whoever's listening to this, even if you find one little nugget or one thing that you can relate to, know that you're not alone and you too can do it.
True.
So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Take care.
So great to talk to you. Bye bye.
Same here. Bye bye.